can't eat.
There's something powerful about the journey of leadership, the daily steps, the long-term vision, and everything we learn along the way. Welcome to Leadership Labs, where we explore these journeys with the incredible leaders of Aurora Public Schools. In each episode, we hear from those who are helping guide us toward Destination APS, sharing their stories, their challenges, and the lessons they've learned along the way. Today, we have a very special opportunity to welcome and get to know our new Chief Academic Officer, Jennifer Troy, Jen, or JT, as many know her. JT, it's literally your third day on the job as we record this. And what a way to start. You had the opportunity to attend graduations on Monday and Tuesday. You come to us as a veteran educator, born and raised in Colorado with a wealth of experience from New York City to significant leadership roles in Denver. We're thrilled to have you join APS and excited to learn more about your journey.
Thanks for having me here.
Yeah, thank you. Welcome. And again, huge welcome to APS. Before we dive into your journey, your story, given that it's your first week, how has your welcome to APS been so far?
You know, it's truly been a really unique start too. And I've loved every minute. So I've been in the office maybe an hour. And before that, all day yesterday and the day before, I sat in a total of 6 graduations. And I think if I had to tell you one of my favorite parts of the year, it's graduation. It's the first day of school and graduation are like the 2 highlights of the year. And getting to start a job, experiencing graduations, from the perspective of an employee, but a new employee, I really learned a lot about APS. And I was so excited to see the cultures of the school, the relationships, the hugs, the high fives, the dances on stage. And I, in between every graduation, getting to meet a new face and somebody new I'd be working with. It was amazing. It was kind of a magical first start. Instead of sitting in one-on-ones and meetings and getting all the context, I got context by observing and listening in an entirely different, unique way.
Yeah, totally.
It was powerful.
Yeah. And, I'm going to take this moment of privilege too. This year at graduations, I had the chance to reconnect with 2 of my former students from my days as a principal in Northwest Denver, which was really neat because I feel like if I was in North Denver, that would happen to me if I was at North High School or Skinner or Lake, where I would run into former students. And so it was a gift I was not expecting across, cities, across districts. I was sitting there in the front row and Ahmed shouts out, "Mr. Rodriguez." And like, wait a second. Yeah. What's funny is I had ran into him and another student, Gabu from Gateway, about a year ago, and they were in 10th grade they were in 11th grade at the time, but in the busyness of just the work, I sort of merged last school year and this school year,
totally,
and thought they were in 11th grade, and so I saw them walking across stage. So it turns out I'm a year older than I thought I was also.
Those are always fun facts to learn.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you for sharing that. I'm glad you got off to a great start. And then also just for folks listening, tell us a little bit about you, your background, and who you are.
Yeah, so I am born and raised in Colorado, in the mountains of Colorado. I grew up in Jefferson County Public Schools, went to Boulder, had a truly incredible learning and I would say K-12 experience. I really felt connections to my teachers. I felt really cared for and valued, and also really pushed. There was this time in 10th grade English, my teacher, Mrs. Paul, I turned in a paper and I got a terrible grade back, and I was in student government. I was doing all these things. I was really busy. So the paper just wasn't my party in the moment. And I got it back, and she really let me know. And it wasn't by the grade. It was what she said to me. She said, "You think because your name is Jen Troy, you're going to get an A on this paper, and you didn't, and you're not. Do it again." And I remember that so distinctly that I've even found her years later on Facebook. And I've said, thank you for pushing me and not just accepting, my lowest effort to say like, you're better than this, and truly feeling that push and that belief in me is part of what makes me remember that we need a belief in others. So I felt like, I had lots of teachers like that in my K-12 experience, that really have made me want to be the best educator I could be.
That's great. Okay, so I know you're new to role and you're new to APS, but for folks who may not understand the role of the chief academic officer, what are some of the things that entails, and what do you see as the core purpose of the role in a district like APS?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really around building vision and strategy and coherence. I believe really strongly that schools can feel it and kids can feel it when things aren't connected at the strategy level in the district office, because our job is truly to serve and support the schools to put the best high quality materials and instruction in front of kids so that they spend their time building relationships and thinking about every student and what they need. And our job is to create those conditions to be able to have the time to do it. So I think at the highest level, that's how I view my role, is making sure that all of our academics teams and our teaching and learning teams are truly thinking about how do we best support schools to support the learning of every kid.
Thank you. You already mentioned you're a Colorado native, born and raised. You just, I think, responded to that like a true educator. What initially drew you into a career in education?
It's funny. Education was going to be a stopover. I have an international affairs degree, and I thought I was going to law school. So I was going to do a few years teaching to take a break from school. I was burnt out. I had to work real hard in college. And I was ready to pause. And so I stepped into education. I got hired as a New York City teaching fellow, which was an alt licensure program in the early 2000s. And so 2 weeks after graduating from Boulder, my family went out for a family vacation. I have a lot of extended family on the East Coast and in New York City and New Jersey. They came for 2 weeks and went home, and I came for 2 weeks and had a couple extra suitcases and I stayed. And so I started my career teaching in the Bronx. 2 weeks after graduating, or 4 weeks I was a student teacher for 6 weeks of summer training to figure out how to teach. I had no teaching background other than teaching some Sunday school to pay my bills in college, some of my bills in college. And that was how I got in. But the kids, I was hooked immediately. I knew I wasn't leaving after the first year. My plans completely changed immediately.
That's amazing. And a great transition point for us, because I had the honor of getting to know you quite a bit through the search process, and I learned more about you through the search process. And you shared with me and with many others who were a part of that a story about your first classroom, I believe classroom 504. Can you tell us a little bit about that experience and those early years, in New York City?
Yeah. So my first class that I was assigned to was class 504. And at that time, at least in the school I was in, they used to level the classes. And each grade level in an elementary school, there was an 01, 02, 03, 04, and an 05 class. 01 were your top kids, your top performers, the students who were getting 4s on the state tests. 02, 03, then 04 were the students at the bottom. They were often repeating. And then 05 was an inclusion. So as a 21-year-old with 0 teaching experience, I was the teacher of record for class 504. And they were magnificent and I was terrible, right? So there was work to be done in that class. So I had a mentor, his name was Anthony. I had a mentor assigned to me from the Department of Education, and he came after about a month in. He observed my classroom, and I thought he was just going to give it to me. I thought he was going to make me so great. I was so excited. I thought he was going to teach me how to use the curriculum that was spotty and hit or miss. I thought he was going to just really make me better and make me better really fast. So we had my prep. It's give it to me, tell me all the things. And he said to me, and I will never forget this, he said, "You're doing the best you can with what you've got." And he was not talking about the missing pages in the curriculum, the cockroaches in the bathroom, the no air conditioning and 100+ degree classrooms. He was not talking about any of those things, or the fact that I couldn't even teach. He was talking about my kids. And it was this moment of I felt like my heart just shattered. I'm such an optimist and believer in what's possible. And it was this moment where I realized that not every adult that works with our kids is a believer. And so the fact that like I knew I was, teaching kids who couldn't read and weren't on grade level and were repeating and considered kids who were struggling, didn't have all the people that they needed to believe in them. I'm sure their parents did. I knew their parents quite well by the end of the year. They definitely did. But it wasn't just the fact that their teachers did and that their experience before fifth grade, the first or some the second time, like there was work to be done, and it was my job then. I realized it was basically shut the door. I made a commitment. No kid will be doing fifth grade again, like every one of them. And so we kind of worked together. We built this little family of 35 kiddos, just and me learning we were all learning together, I guess you could say.
Yeah, that's incredible. And one of my personal core beliefs is that all students can and are capable. And I think it's so important that all of our educators who have the honor and privilege and the really good fortune to get to work with our students.
Yes,
we must to. Yeah.
Right. We get to, and we have to, truly, like we have to.
Yeah. But
it's truly the biggest privilege that we get to work with students. And often I always say that I learn as much from students as they do from me. Yeah. Like I learned my 5 years in the Bronx, you couldn't change how much I learned and grew in those 5 years. And so much of it is because of the students.
Did you do fifth grade, all 5?
No, I did 2 years of fifth grade, and then they threatened to move me down to third grade the first testing year because my test scores were good. And I moved right up into middle school.
Yeah, that's cool. Well, tell us then, what led you back to Colorado and specifically to Denver, and what were the next steps from the Bronx, the boogie down Bronx, New York City to Denver?
So as I mentioned, I am born and raised here. My husband is also born and raised here. He's a DPS graduate. And so we both we would come home for breaks and, whatever. And, when you spend a lot of time away from folks, you notice how much they change when you come back. And so I was noticing that I felt like I was missing stuff. I felt like I was missing time with my parents, with his parents, with my brother, just with friends out here. It felt like home was calling, even though we loved the Bronx. I think if we didn't have family here, I'm not certain we would have moved home. We really loved like the culture and the vibe of the Bronx. But we knew we needed to move home. And so we looked to move home the year before we moved home, and then the year we moved home. And the snafu was that my license wasn't transferring. So New York State's teaching license, didn't have the transferability into Colorado. And so then finally I was just like, you know what, I'll go home. And I had this amazing opportunity to work as a founding teacher at a small school in a small charter network in Denver called West Denver Prep, and to be a founding sixth grade teacher. So I took that job. I really loved it. It was another space where people were willing to do what it took to really make all means all, right? And really get all kids across the finish line and close gaps and really catch kids up quickly. And so home called, and that just happened to work out. And then I spent a couple of years there and then was asked to found a charter middle school in the far northeast part of Denver, in Montbello. And so as a founding principal at 28 years old, we rolled right in and we did the thing.
That's another good segue. So tell us a little bit more about what the experience was like as a founding principal and building that school community with staff and with students and families and community members, and also just sort of what pivotal moments or lessons from that time shaped your path toward future leadership.
Well, as you can imagine, as a 28-year-old principal with very little training, I had 6 sessions of principal training. I wasn't prepared, so I learned a lot of really important lessons. But I would say founding a school is really magical because you start almost from nothing. You might have a blueprint or some plans, but every community is unique. Every team is unique. Every group of students is unique. And so we really got to build something from the ground up, and it was really incredible. That the semester before we opened our school, in Denver, there's a choice process, and my initial list came back with 34 students on the list. And I was like, oh, that's not a school, right? I was like, I need a tent and a cell phone, and I'm the teacher of record, right? And so I pounded pavement for that whole summer to get to 110 sixth graders, really every day going door to door, knocking on doors, saying like, hey, have you heard of this school? It's small, it's safe, it's college prep. It was going to be a very small school. And so I spent literally every day posted up in the McDonald's at 45th and Peoria. That was my office, because I had great Wi-Fi and some snacks, right? And I was going out every day and recruiting kids. And then I realized once we recruited kids, I had work to do to build this out. And so we hired an incredible team, and built it out. Founding is incredible because you write everything from culture plans to operational plans to every single training plan, every single thing that needs to happen down to the smallest detail had to be done. And because of the type of person I am, it also had to be done at a reasonably high quality of caliber. And so we really worked through it, but it was a team. It was a really strong, and hired very intentionally. I was listening for teaching skill, but also mindsets, because mindsets mean a lot to me. Like you said, a core belief is that all students can. I needed to know that we were hiring a team who believed in all kids and were willing to work with all kids, right? Like, there are behaviors we may need to teach, learn, read, like, how are we going to do this thing? If they're reading below grade level, who's got the belief that we can catch them up and really catch, you have 3 years of middle school, you can do a lot in 3 years and make up to 6 years of growth. And so I was listening for that as we hired. But I would say a pivotal moment was, as I mentioned, a young leader with very little leading experience other than some teacher leadership roles and a half a year of an AP. I learned a lot. And in November, you could feel like it was tense. It was hard. And so that Tuesday of the Thanksgiving week, we were about to go on break the next day. I could just feel it. And so I talked to my admin team. We had an AP, an operations manager, and an office manager. And I sat them down. I said, hey, the staff meeting tonight, we're just going to listen. We're not going to respond. We're not doing any PD. We are just going to listen. We need to hear what's going on and how people are feeling. So we sat in the front of the room in front of everybody, and we just said, like, essentially, let us have it. Tell us all the things. And there were things from August and from before school even started that they were frustrated with, and we're still holding on to, because we were grinding so hard, and it was always more, harder, better, faster. We need to do this, or this student needs this. How do we support this? And I didn't know enough yet how to help people take care of themselves and how to take care of others. And so we just listened, and we took a lot of feedback, and we went to Ahua, that's kind of like across the street. Across the street from there. And we sat there and we hung out and we ate and cried in the queso fundido. And like, we were like, what are we going to do? And when we came back, we had a plan for what we were going to do and how we were going to make it better and how we were going to right some of those wrongs and challenges and what we needed to do, because we knew the team really mattered. Every single one of them we needed. It was a small team. It was 8 teachers the first year, because there's a slow build out a year at a time. And that taught me a lot about listening, and that if you listen, you can change and tweak and make it better if you're willing to take the criticism. Like, oh gosh, it hurt, but it made it better. And we made it through the year. And I've talked to some of that, I'm still pretty close with the majority of those staff members. And I remember that so much more vividly than they do, which seems ironic, but nobody remembers that year as hard as I remember that year. And I think it's A, because of those types of nights, but B, it's because I was always trying to make it better.
Y'all had some pretty good results out of the gate, right?
Yep.
Tell
I was really proud of that year. We put up an 84 MGP for growth and math. It was the highest in the state. We had excellent, we beat out almost everybody for growth data. And I was just so proud of that, because we had students who came in reading pretty far below grade level and doing math pretty far below grade level. And so that kind of growth meant that we were on track to, when they left us in 8th grade, them being on grade level for high school. And that was my goal. That was the goal that we set. And truly what I believe is possible in middle school, to catch students up. You can make a year and a half to 2 years growth.
For sure.
If you're really hitting interventions hard and strong tier 1 instruction really hard. And so that is a core belief that I take now into this role. It's like, what do we do to make sure that we are keeping up, catching up, and accelerating as often as possible for kids?
Yeah. Totally. And one of my other core beliefs is that educators transform lives. And, I think I'm grounded in that belief as a former student of Colorado public education system, and as an educator, that's been my experience. That educators transform lives.
Truly.
So, thank you for that. Okay, you talked about Anthony. I don't know if Anthony was a key mentor of yours or not, but
I didn't invite him back. I asked them not to send him back after that.
So do tell us though, if there were any, key mentors, either in New York City or as a founding principal, and so at some point in your journey as a leader that significantly influenced your leadership.
What's really interesting is I've had a lot of people that I consider like mentors, people that I can call and pick up the phone and talk to. But what actually stands out to me is I had kind of the opposite of what I would consider a mentor. I learned a lot about what not to do I had one of the schools I worked for in New York, the leadership team was, they were all about student outcomes and achievement, which I believe deeply in. I would say the how did not really align with my personal beliefs and how we show up for each other. And I learned a lot about what I would never do if I would lead. And I think there were moments where we'd like show up to work in the morning and the copy machines would be pulled out of the wall, rolled out the door and hidden. You couldn't make your copies in the morning. And then you'd hear laughter about it, right? And that's cruel. And then they would go in and observe folks and write in the observation they're not prepared for their lessons. And I was like, why would we do that? Like, what's the point in that? What does it teach someone? And to them, it was about teaching lessons. To me, it's like, how do I coach someone to get ahead so you can do your lesson plans before the night of? But let's be honest, some of us do things the night before and it's still high quality, the morning of, and it's still high quality. What matters is that when they walk in the door for kids, they're prepared for class. And so I learned a lot about how to treat people and what leadership is. Leadership is, it's not no accountability or no support, or no high expectations. I believe deeply in high expectations, but I also believe deeply in support and making sure people have what they need to be and feel successful. And that was like mind blowing that anyone could do that. And I remember that, that's now a long time back. And I still remember like cruelty doesn't get results, right? Like high accountability and expectations without support and belief in people and treating people well doesn't work, right? And so that taught me a lot about, from the very beginning of my career, how I believe people, to your point, educators are magical. Educators get it done and are why we're here. And that means we got to treat them well.
Absolutely.
We got to do everything we can to be able to, the phrase I use is students first, but adult friendly, right? Like it has to be good for adults too. Absolutely. But students are at the core of why we do what we do.
Yep. You remind me of I joke about this, but it is a little bit of a moment of pride for me. I'm a classically trained educator from the University of Northern Colorado, and I remember when I did my first semester of student teaching. It was in the third grade classroom, and my mentor teacher Jose Perez said, this is like the first, like before the kids come, but we sat down and kind of talked through my learning plan and when I was going to take over different parts of the classroom, and he said, hey, you're going to learn a lot this year, and you're going to learn some things that you'll want to emulate and copy and use, and they're yours, but you're also going to learn what not to do and how to do things differently, because he was very humble and reflective of like, there's some things I'm not very good at. And it was funny. It was very helpful because like that was my first sort of perspective where same thing as a 21-year-old in that space. I was thinking, I'm going to come learn from all of the great things. And he pointed that out. And that's sort of been the case, throughout my career. Absolutely. Right. Where like, I might do that differently, or actually, that's a great idea.
I shamelessly steal everything, but I think you also see the things that like, that doesn't fit, or that didn't feel good, and those moments really matter.
Yeah. All right, we're going to transition now from the principalship to central office leader, and we're going to skip a few roles. I know you've had some various different leadership roles in the central office and Denver and in DSST, but most recently, you're the associate chief of schools for secondary, so all middle schools, all high schools across Denver. And just curious about, what you learned about system level leadership and sort of impacting education on a broader scale in that role.
Yeah, I've truly learned a lot. I would say over the last few years, I've really learned a lot about leading in a system and leading, in small, like in a charter network, you can do a lot more faster. I often compare them like it's driving a speedboat compared to like a cruise ship or an oil tanker, right?
Yeah.
Like the bigger boats take longer to turn and more intentionality to turn. You really need to have a much more thoughtful plan because the change, when it doesn't go well, there's a lot more to clean up. Right. There's a lot more to right your wrongs and do things differently. And so I learned a lot about the balance of the sense of urgency. Because I feel so much of the like, we've got to get this right for kids today, I feel a strong sense of urgency. And I know that too much urgency and you do things poorly, right? And so I've learned a lot about strategic thinking and planning and starting about at a big picture level and say, like, what are our desired outcomes? What are we trying to achieve? And then thinking through how do we need to get done and how do all the pieces really fit together? I think a word that I use very often is coherence and connectedness. Like we need to make sure that we have that because schools truly will feel it when the central office doesn't have that. And I think another piece that's really important that I've learned a lot about is that collective ownership and shared responsibility of how do we share things together and see the connectivity in our work. Yeah. Like at a high level, it doesn't always feel like everything really clearly connects. And yet when we can't find those through lines and make those connections, something gets missed, something gets lost, something isn't done well. And truly at the end result is that kids don't get what they need. Yes. And so I think a lot about just that coherence and that connectivity and really communication. Like I'm just such a believer, like, great, let's pull everybody together. We may not meet all the time together, but we need to meet about this. Like, how do we get on the same page? Because if we're not, ultimately, who feels it?
Absolutely.
Our school leaders, our teachers, our students, and they're all grinding. So we got to just make sure we're coherent.
Thank you for that. This is a big question coming up for the APS community.
Yeah.
What specifically attracted you to Aurora Public Schools? We're certainly thrilled to have stolen you from our neighbor to the west, but just would love to hear from you. What drew you to come on over?
I love this question because it was really affirmed the last 2 days. So getting to sit in graduations, I know Aurora really well on paper. I've done a ton of research over the last few years about Aurora, and I know that it's really diverse and it's vibrant. And you hear people say that, but when you experience it, it's even better. And I would say that was one of a key experiences that I had over the last 2 days attending all the graduations, getting to see the different, just the diverse communities, the families, the students, hearing about the different languages, the seal of biliteracy, like all of the different pieces that make it magical. I think I saw it in real time yesterday, and it was amazing. It brought me so much joy. And then seeing the diversity, but the connectedness across. So it's also about like the relationships across lines of difference. Like I saw it in action yesterday. And I think that's really critical. And then I was asking people as I was interviewing, like, what do you love about Aurora and about Aurora Public Schools? And I kept hearing over and over again, it's the people. It's the people. The people here are wonderful. The people here are brilliant. The people here are ready to get it done, are really committed to kids. And I'm like, that's me, right? Like I fit in, even though I wasn't yet in. Like that's the place I want to be, and is why I want to be here.
Thank you. Again, I know it's the early days, but tell us a little bit about even just some dreams in terms of vision or just core philosophy that you're bringing to your approach as our new CAO.
Yeah. I mean, I think you mentioned it earlier, but I believe in all students. So, and I really think, I was at a conference a few weeks ago and I heard a former superintendent say to know every kid by name, by strength, by area, by need, and make sure that they're prepared for the future of their choosing. And that spoke directly to what I believe. Humans matter, right? At the core of what we do, teaching is such a cool profession because it's about people, right? We are in a people business, right? We've got to get it done for kids. We work with people, we rely on people to do right by kids. And that starts with relationships and knowing everybody and what they need and what they're great at, right? Like it's important to know a strength as well as what they need. But also, I believe deeply that kids deserve unlimited access to opportunities and choice. And I believe deeply that I never want an Aurora Public School graduate to hear no. I want them to be able to say no, to turn down job offers and opportunities in universities and whatever the future is of their choosing, because it's not what they want. But I don't like it when kids get told no because they're not ready, they didn't do well, they're not prepared. That's our job. Yeah. And so I really want to make sure that they have just unlimited choice.
Thank you.
Of course.
All right. Now we're going to talk a little bit about leadership mile markers. One of the hardest questions that folks have grappled with on the podcast so far is this next one, because I think that, again, we're really lucky to get to work with amazing colleagues and serve students who are brilliant. And so the question is, what is, one or two of your proudest moments thus far?
Yeah. What am I most proud of as a leader? Well, we talked about the school I led, but I think most recently what I'm most proud of from my previous role is the work we've done around graduation rates and really making sure that students are graduating, that we're increasing graduation rates and getting kids onto their futures and prepared for their futures. So I think thinking through, the credentials of value, making sure more students are enrolled in rigorous courses like concurrent enrollment, APIB, really getting kids, we have, thinking through the impact of CTE for students to make sure that they have access in high school for free to opportunities so that when they graduate, they either have some college credits under their belt, they have credentials of value to start in the workforce, and that they're ready to roll into their future if they're choosing. And I think that seeing those numbers improve every year because of better strategy and coherence and work at the central level to support schools better, I think is something that I am really proud of, because I know that it has a direct impact on students' lives.
Absolutely. Thank you. And, that's, of course, graduation is one of our Board of Education goals and is a major focus for us as well, both in general, but also specifically with the strategic plan. And so we're excited to tap into those experiences that you bring to the table. Shifting a little bit from secondary and graduation, given your deep experience with secondary schools in Denver, what insights do you bring to thinking about the full pre-K to 12th grade continuum here in Aurora?
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot when I talk about strategy, I think in terms of proactive and reactive. And this is the case in every ed level. We need a certain degree of reactive because there will always be a moment where we need to catch a student up due to an unforeseen circumstances or circumstances we know, and really being on the back end, how are we getting them there? How are we making sure? But I believe that what's really important is actually a proactive strategy at each ed level, really going all in on the science of reading and early literacy, making sure that when students get to third grade, that they are truly on track, that we have done early intervention, strong tier 1 instruction, and really done what we can to make sure, because I believe that the more students are on track or even ahead of the game, the more they get to maximize, especially when they get to high school, the courses they can take and the access to opportunities. And so the kind of lens I bring is, what is our proactive work? So that there's less reactive work, but so that, the world is students' oyster as far as what students have access to and get to do to truly maximize their high school years.
Absolutely. Okay, we're going to shift gears into the leadership playlist.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So every leader, I believe, needs fuel for the journey. And, sometimes it's a book, sometimes it's whatever it is. And specifically, I sometimes think about my own experience when I'm running of, there are times when I just listen to one song on repeat. There's times when I listen to an audible or a podcast, and every once in a while, like I'll take a phone call while I'm running. It just sort of depends. What do I need today? Is there a book that has maybe significantly influenced your thinking that you would recommend to leaders or aspiring leaders who are listening?
That's a great question. So I am like a leadership book. I love them. If you walk into my office, there will be walls eventually once it's set up. There will be walls of them because I pull tidbits from a lot of different ones. I would say the one I'm reading right now was a good regrounding book. It's called Teacher by Teacher by former Secretary of Education John King Jr. Under Obama. And it is about the impact teachers had on his life. And I just felt like it was sent to me by a friend, and it was just this perfect regrounding into why our work matters so much. And it was just, I sent pictures of the introduction to people being like, read this paragraph, this is amazing. And it was just about the impact that like a small conversation or the way discourse is led in a classroom and letting students debate and debating with students as teachers, not that and the I'm right, you're wrong, but that in the we all learn together from each other. It was just it's a powerful reminder, and I'm about halfway through, admittedly, but it's really powerful.
Good. I'll have to add it to the list. I've seen a lot of folks who have started to
it's incredible.
Post it.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. On a lighter note, I'm very selfishly interested in your response to this. What is playing in your leadership headphones lately? So tell me either, artists, genres, specific songs that keep you motivated or help you to reflect or you just enjoy listening to on the drive in.
Yep. I love music. I love all music. I love live music. One of the most fun jobs I've ever had was the summer between my freshman and sophomore year of college, I worked at Red Rocks Amphitheater.
Oh, that's great.
And I worked every show that summer, and I saw everything from Tom Petty to Bonnie Raitt to Kid Rock. It was such a fun summer because I love music. I think a go-to for mine will always be 90s hip hop and R&B. I love child of the 90s. I love the 90s. Growing up in the 90s was super fun and lots of great music. And so that is a go-to. I would say I have different hype songs depending on like what I need. So I listen to a lot of the first half of Hamilton. I listen to a ton of that. The Room Where It Happens, I'm Not Throwing Away My Shot, right? Like those are songs. And then there's the Rachel Platten's Fight song. Cool. Like I get a lot of energy from music, and I don't know if you ever saw the show Ally McBeal when we were younger. It's a bizarre show, but she always has like a soundtrack playing in her head at all points. And that is me. Like no matter what I'm doing, a song will pop into my head and I'm humming a song, or like a phrase someone will say will bring a song to my head. There's always music playing, whether it's in my head or actually playing.
That's great. Thank you. All right, as we approach the finish line of our conversation, I know you're just getting acquainted, but let's sprint through a few quick questions. You've heard about this, of course, through the search process, but the phrase destination APS is central to our school district. It's the name of our strategic plan, and from your fresh perspective, what does that concept initially spark for you? Or mean to you as you step into this role?
Yep. I am a lover of travelers, of traveling, of new experiences, of seeing new places. And so when I think of the phrase destination APS, it's a place you never forget. It's the place you want to be. Like a destination sounds magical. A destination sounds exciting and exclusive. And that's my hope. Like that's what we're striving for. It's this place that really gets it done for kids and is the destination. It's the place you want to work. It's the place you want to send your kids. It's the place to be.
That's right. This is the place to be. All right. What excites you the most about the opportunity ahead here in APS?
I mean, I Gosh, that's a really good question. I keep walking around and my phrase is just, I'm really excited. Like it's just like rolling out of my mouth. And it's like, do I know other words? I'm just so excited. But I think I'm really excited that every conversation I've had with everybody is about how are we getting better? How do we continue to improve? How do we get better for kids? What are we doing? What's the plan for this? And I think like that is, it shows this eagerness to grow and be better for kids. And that is just, I mean, that's at the core of who I am. We can always be better. Every single one of us can grow. And I've felt that from every conversation. And the connectivity and the friendliness is just like, that's how we're going to get it done, is we're going to do it together. We can do hard things together. It's that saying, you know, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. Like we got to go together. That's it.
That just played a song from Mufasa in my head. The Mufasa movie.
I haven't seen it yet.
That line is in one of the songs.
I love it.
Which is funny. I highly recommend the movie. Yeah, it got mixed reviews, but
that's why I haven't seen it.
Our family enjoyed it.
So, okay, we'll watch it then.
Okay, last question for you. As our new chief academic officer, what's one message you'd like to share with our amazing teachers and staff and leaders and students and their families as you begin your journey with us? Yeah,
there's this quote that really deeply kind of resonates with me. And you can find it in various points of history. I think it goes all the way back to Hillel the Elder thousands of years ago. And then it goes to, I think maybe JFK, maybe Ronald Reagan. I think it goes through a few different points, but it's, if not us, who, and if not now, when. And I think that is something like the time is now, and it's us who are going to do it, and we're going to do it together. And I know this is it. We're going to do it.
Thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me, and especially during such a busy first week. It's been fantastic to hear about your journey from Classroom 504 to leading academic strategy. Your experience, your passion, your fresh perspective are truly exciting for us in APS. And on behalf of the entire APS community, I want to just extend a very warm welcome. We're so glad that you're here.
So happy to be here.
And to our listeners, thank you for joining us on Leadership Labs. Join us next time as we continue exploring the paths of those guiding us toward Destination APS. Until then, keep running your race with purpose.